Hello and welcome. I am Sunny. I'm Sonlight's community manager, and I'm also a Sonlight mom to two kids who have been educated with Sonlight since preschool. And today we are talking all about how to raise up independent children. So whether you are starting with young kids so that you want to become more independent in their schoolwork, or if you have older kids and you're trying to figure out how to launch them into adulthood, we are here to help you out. So I'm being joined by Ann and Christy. Let's start. Ann, do you want to tell us about yourself and maybe how old your kids are at this point and how you know that they're getting where they need to be?
Yeah, sure. My name is Ann. I have two kids. I say kids, they're not too much kids anymore. One is 16, very soon to turn 17, and the other will soon be 20 this year. So one of them is in college. He just got home this past weekend from his freshman year, and my daughter is a junior in high school.
Well, perfect. And Christy, what about you? Tell us about yourself and your children.
Okay, I have four boys. The oldest is 20 and he is finishing his sophomore year of college. And then the youngest is 14. And so in between, I guess going into the fall, we have two high school and two that will be in college. So
so you guys are kind of on the cusp of the high school college age. My daughter is 14 and my son is 9. So I still have an elementary schooler, but I also have that high schooler who is looking forward to driving and jobs and all the independent things as well. She's just itching to get there. So yeah, we'll tell you all about how we got our kids to this point and are continuing to get them to this point. But let's first talk about how independence helps your kids and you, because I think sometimes it's hard to let go. So how is it good for us and for your children to encourage that independence?
One of the benefits I have seen over time is free time. When people are independent, then you can have three people working on things all at the same time without needing too much help, and that frees you up to do other things later. So eventually having more free time, because the homeschooling is definitely a journey when they're all little and you require your attention for everything. You feel like you will never have free time again. Never, but you will. So that's one of the perks of getting to that stage.
I think it helps our flow of our day to have part of the time together and part of the time separately. I just think that helps the intensity of the togetherness in our house. We are together all day. And so just having that division with Sonlight, we call it couch time and table time. So having the couch time where we're together and we're enjoying reading the Bible and we're reading our books together. And then we have that time where everyone's doing their independent work. And I think that having that individual work meant for my guys just being part of the team and having things that I'm able to do this on my own. Even starting at age 3, my little guy would have, I have my assignments, and he would go and get his specific box of the little Mighty Minds math. He called them his school triangles, and he would get his school triangles and he would go and sit down, and he took it very seriously. It just meant he was part of the club. He was part of the team. He had a job to do and he was going to do it. And everybody knew that we had something at their individual level. And so just that they could work on independently and just grow over the years to more independence with that.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you mentioned your youngest wanted to be a part of the club or a part of the team. And I think, yeah, younger siblings, especially because they've seen their older siblings do it, they want something that's theirs. And I know in our house, I've always been big on encouraging, responsibility based on whatever you're capable of. Of course, younger kids, you're not going to require them to do the same things you would an older kid, but everybody chips in. We're all part of the family. What can you do? How can you be a part of it? And then also, I would hate for my kids to grow up and not know how to do the things they need to do as adults. There's that joke about you learn about, things you're never going to need while you're in school, but you don't learn how to file your taxes or, things like that. And so I think when you're homeschooling and you have your kids with you all the time, you can model a lot of things for them, but also start teaching them those things from a young age. And Anna, I love what you said about free time. Super introvert here. I need some space to myself with no sound. It doesn't matter how long it is or what it is. A lot of background noise. I get very irritated by that. And so I need a certain amount of time that I can just step outside or go take my book and read. And once your kids get a little bit older and they can entertain themselves a little bit more and do things independently, it gives you those breaks where you can just, take some time. So absolutely agree. Love what you guys said there. And I know we talked kind of starting at an early age, but when do you start encouraging that independence, and how do you make sure, that maybe they're capable of doing what you're asking them to do at that age? How do you start encouraging that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that for me early on, if you could think of some tools, some of the tools that we used were visual schedule calendars for little guys, even before they could read a schedule, for them to see pictures. If they were going to be, whatever it was I was asking them to do in the morning, I might have pictures of those, in a little picture schedule. That was very popular at that time. I'm not sure if that's popular now or not. There was a workbox system. Do you guys remember this whole phenomenon? It became very detailed, where people had work boxes where everybody had a box to work, and we did a version of that. It wasn't as hardcore as some people that got really organized with it, but that was something that we did in the early, I would say, even preschool, early kindergarten years. And then one thing that's kind of a little bit related around the kindergarten age, I think we worked on the ability to make a decision that didn't take a long time, just that you don't want to make people wait for you to make a decision. You don't want to be that person at the dinner table that it takes forever. My husband always wants to go last to say what he wants to eat at the table, like if he's ordering with everyone, until I pointed it out. And now he's a little paranoid about it. But anyway, I think we can help them. And that's part of independence, being able to make a decision if they have free time, I'm going to do this. And, being able to just independently move from activity to activity, make decisions quickly. I think you can start that in very early elementary years.
Yeah, I did something kind of similar. You mentioned the visual thing. I would do that too each night. It's just whenever before the morning, I would gather up whatever they're going to be doing the next day for school. And I had this little IKEA thing with bins, and each subject would go, or each book, would go in a different bin, so they could visually see, this is what I'm doing for school today. And they know that that's what they get through. And then, school is done for the day, and they can do whatever other, things. So that visual thing was really helpful. And talking about make decisions too. That is a little bit of independence. Now, even if they couldn't do the activity independently, they could still make that choice where, okay, it's my turn to do school now. I'm going to pick this thing. And so that is just a little small step towards that, making those decisions. And at younger ages, actually doing the work independently is so variable depending on the child. And my two kids are the total opposite ends of things when it comes to doing that. I have one that started picking her bin and was able to do things more independently than the other. But by the time you get to high school, then it kind of evens out. So even if you do have one that's not as independent as the other, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just a kind of a personality thing. And you just go with each child's individual personality with that and go with the flow, but they will get there. If my two at the opposite ends of the spectrum, the one that was not as independent is very much so now. So I'm a firm believer that it will happen.
They are, and just make progress.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great reminder that, don't look at, so-and-so did this at 2 and my child's 5 and they still can't do it, because everybody develops at their own rate. And I know my daughter did not have the same fine motor skills that my son did at the same age. So anything small, she had a harder time with than he did. But of course that does even out as kids get older. Also, something that I discovered with my kids is once they started asking to do things, there were times that I was like, oh, nope, you're too little. That's not safe. You know, like say they wanted to cut their own food, for example. And I was like, oh, I don't think they can use a knife yet. They will surprise you. I realized when I started letting them take the lead in the things they wanted to do, and as long as I supervised them to make sure they were safe, they were able to do a lot more than I even realized. My son is a grazer. He loves to eat. He was very motivated to learn how to cook for himself at an early age. I remember him saying, can you show me how to make eggs? Can you show me how to make a grilled cheese sandwich? Oh, can I cut this? Like all of these different things. And I was like, no, you're not going to eat it, you know, and especially he was my baby. I was like, no, you can't do this. But he was motivated because he wanted to feed himself. And what I discovered is when I allowed him to, you know, watch me, and then I made sure he was safe, that he was able to make his own food at an early age. Even when he could barely see over the stovetop, he could make basic things. And now, you know, he makes all sorts of things and he's been able to feed himself. So that gave me the time of not having to feed him 7 times during the day, because he would eat that many times if I wanted to be in the kitchen doing that. Same thing with my daughter when she wanted to stay home by herself the first time. She said, I think I'm old enough. Can I stay home? And so we said, okay, we'll leave for 30 minutes. If you get scared, call us. You know, like we did a very gradual transition for her. And then, yeah, she was scared the first time. So we said, okay, you're probably not quite ready. And, you know, then we revisited again a few months later. So even if it's not school things, kind of let them take the lead on, I want to try this. I think I can do this. Even if you as mom are saying, oh no, I don't think they're ready yet, because they will surprise you and they are capable of a lot of things, especially if they're asking you to do stuff. But even with the schoolwork, you can start very early. I think I started in kindergarten with math, like, okay, we're going to talk about addition or whatever it was. And there would be 6 problems on the page. And I would say, okay, I'm going to walk over there. I'm still there with them if they have a question, but I'm going to walk over there, do these 6 problems. And then, you know, once they got to the point that they could do the whole lesson by themselves, you get to a point very quickly where, one, they're excited because now they can do this on their own and on their own schedule, but now they have a little bit more buy-in into it, which I have found for my kids has been the best motivator for them, is if they get to decide when and how they do things. So that's something, yeah, as soon as you can start training those things, go for it. But how do you avoid micromanaging or correcting kids when they do things wrong? I know I've heard this in reference to maybe chores. Oh, I would let my kids clean that, but they don't do a good job and I have to come back and do it anyway. How do you kind of hold yourself back a little bit and give them room to make mistakes? Because of course they're not going to do things perfectly the first time.
Right. Yeah, you've got to just step back and model how to do whatever the thing is, and then let them give a try at it, and then afterwards, and it's also a kind of a skill to learn to take constructive, feedback, and so that's what happens after those chores and things like that too, where you can go back and look and see, and you can also model it. And we don't do everything perfectly either. And so make sure that they see, that that you yourself don't do everything perfectly. And it's just a normal part of being a human being, is that we just keep learning and learning from our mistakes and just try to have the attitude of doing it better each time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody has to be a beginner at something at some. And if you never risk anything, you never learn anything. So that's a good thing to teach. But I think in the spirit of not frustrating or not exasperating, to choosing the correction time, especially when you're together all day, I think that can be important. I mean, you can just think of the best time of day if there's something that you really need to cover. I think that's good to kind of just consider, when is this going to be the best? I don't want to, derail our day of school by correcting first thing. That's not probably going to be the best time for me anyway, with the personalities that I live with, or in front of their siblings, especially a sibling who's been writing them about maybe something similar. If they are doing something that is frustrating, it can be good to talk to them about that. But choosing the time when you're not all together. And I tend to ask questions instead of accuse or, pointing out or micromanaging, like you're saying, like, oh, what happened here? And maybe they will say it themselves. Oh, I got in a hurry and I really my handwriting was terrible today, and you can say, oh, well, then it came from them and it didn't come from you. So sometimes just asking a question that can help. And I think it depends on the subject too. I mean, I correct every math problem that's incorrect. They just know that. If there's a math problem that's incorrect, and then I circle it and they fix it. But because that's just so important that the next day that they can build on that. But if it's something like handwriting, I resist correcting every misspelling or overly correcting handwriting or, that kind of thing. For spelling, something I did in the early years, spelling is important to me. Anybody that knows me knows that I edit my own writing constantly. So like when you get something from me, it's usually edited because I edit myself. So it is important to me, but I keep a list in the early years. I had just an alphabet list, A to Z of words. And what I did is if I saw them missing words, I didn't tell them every time I saw it, but I would add it to the list. And then I would cover those words somewhere in our day. Or so I might add it even to their spelling list without them realizing it wasn't a spelling word. It's just one that they keep missing. And so instead of showing them, I just kept a list of those things. And then, but I think even especially for writing, it's important not to overwhelm them. Choose good things that they're doing and point that out, and then maybe pick one or two big things. But we think we have to, depending on our personality and if we are perfectionists. I know someone, I won't say how we're related or that kind of thing, because it would just be too specific. But for art projects for children, she cannot stand to just let them be. Like she has to correct it, like fix it, like if the house is not in the right spot, or if it's, she will fix it to be, she can't. And with children's art, you have to let them do their own thing, So there are certain subjects in certain areas that I would say really hold yourself back and, choose your time or choose the subject where it, more correcting is okay. I think math is okay for corrections. I don't know.
Well, and you brought up like writing, spelling, handwriting. I think for those types of things, especially in the early years, if you focus on what is the goal of this assignment, right? Is it that they have good handwriting? Is it that they're spelling the words correctly? Are they using good grammar? If you try to do it all, especially with a young kid, that is going to be overwhelming. And probably they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just bad at all of this, versus okay, the purpose of this assignment is just handwriting. I just want you to write your best. We'll come back and talk about spelling later, and then do spelling, and same thing with writing, because that's a lot of different things all happening at once. But yeah, math, absolutely. There's a right answer. There's a wrong answer. That is not subjective. But I love what you said about not doing it in front of your siblings, because we talk about how with homeschooling, you're not being compared to a class, which is amazing. But siblings oftentimes will compare themselves to each other, especially if you have one who thinks they're awesome at everything. They're going to tell the other one how bad they are at things, because that's just siblings sometimes. And so I love what you said there. Yeah, about it, especially if a child's struggling with something, pull them aside later, do it gently, give them grace. My family jokes that no one in our house can clean a toilet like I can. It will never meet my standard, no matter what they do. So if we have people coming over, I'm the one cleaning the toilets because I want it to look the way I want it to look. But if no one's coming over, okay, you can get in there and try, because one day you're going to have your own toilets and I would like you to know how to clean them. I joke with my kids because my daughter especially likes to be messy. And I'm like, if your house is not messy, I will not want to come visit you when you're an adult. So you got to learn these things. And so it's, it's tongue in cheek, but again, you want to be gracious and understand that, these are kids. They're not adults. Do not try to expect them to do things the way you would do it, but also think about how you would feel if you were in their shoes and somebody over you was telling you how bad you were at something or how wrong you were doing. I love whichever one of you said that you ask questions like, oh, what happened here? Because oftentimes your kids can figure out, oh, I really didn't understand that, or, oh, I was just being lazy and didn't want to do my work. And for me, there's a big difference in how I'm going to respond to a lazy child versus a child who's not understanding it. So yeah, I think all of those things are really important. Let's talk a little bit about the older kids and how Sonlight really teaches them to think for themselves, form opinions, critically think, because of course, becoming an independent adult, also a lot of that has to do with your thought processes. And I think Sonlight does an astounding job at that. Can you ladies speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I agree completely. I think just reading whole books, and just not little excerpts or something, just all over the years is an amazing thing where you get to just see big pictures of history and things and why things happened and what caused different things. And you put it all together. It just is an amazing connection that you have.
Mhm. Yeah, I think too that you hear from so many perspectives. So there's a wisdom and a whole lot of counsels. There's wisdom and a whole lot of voices. And so if you're hearing, seeing all these different ways of thinking of things, from all of these characters that we read, I think there's a humility that comes with that. And a critical thinking about, oh, wait, they did this, we do this. What's why are we doing this? So there's a critical thinking that comes with that. And I think that my guys were prepared to go into a community that one of my guys just recently told me that in his group there was a discussion, and there were people that sent kind of their ideas on something. They were having kind of an argument about something, and there were people that sent out a note to everybody with the whole group. Their whole friend group is in this big text group, and it was pretty in your face, like, this is how we think about this. And and my son said, I was able to talk to my friend over time about it. And I think he realized, oh, wow, he was pretty out there in his attitude. I think it just helps to have that humility of when you're talking about something, to have the humility to listen to others. I think they learned that through listening to a lot of books and different characters and different people and hearing from them. And one of the friends in the group sent a 6-page paper back to the friend. I thought that was so great. She sat down and wrote a paper. But anyway, I think just them going out into college, even being able to plan their day, my son, his coach recently recommended him reading a book about time management because he told the whole class, the whole team, he recommended it. And my son picked it up and read the whole book, just quickly. And it revolutionized his year this year. It was during the summer, at the end of the summer last year. And that revolutionized him. There's some certain things that they're going to have to learn about time management when they're on their own. But I think you can lay some foundational skills that they will maybe come back to and remember after the freshman year when they make their choices and maybe don't do time management the way that it should be done. I think that you can lay the foundation now for that. And I think Sonlight.
Yeah, I think talking about that foundation, when you hit the high school levels of Sonlight, they've got their student instructor guide, and then you've got yours, with the answers and everything. But theirs has the schedule, so they know exactly what they have to do and what they have to accomplish, and it really lends itself towards being independent. And talking about the critical thinking in college part, my son's here, so he can hear me say all this, but it's okay. He just come back from college, but he had a speech class this last semester. And every student got to pick a topic, their term topic, and they would give 3 speeches about that topic: an informational, analysis of controversy, and then persuasive. So when they got to that analysis of controversy, the assignment was to present 2 sides of an issue. And he was able to do that very successfully. Just seeing, how with all the history in Sonlight, you do see both sides and multiple sides of issues. And he was really surprised at how many students had a really hard time with that, and actually discussing in class, well, how can we do that? This is what I feel. How can I show both sides? And they really, they really were not as prepared. Some of the students were not. And so he really got to see that, and I got to see that through him telling me about that experience. And it just reinforced what his education, his homeschool and his Sonlight and developing his independence to do all these things and the critical thinking. It really does come naturally doing this curriculum.
Yeah, and I agree. My kids haven't even graduated yet, but when I talk to Sonlight graduates, I'm always blown away at how articulate they are compared to the average person their age. I mean, at least judging in my town, if the fast food employees that are teenagers about the same age are any indication, kids are not learning these things at school. But the Sonlight kids are so articulate because they've read so much. They have these amazing vocabularies, but Sonlight also does an amazing job, like you guys said, about showing you different sides to an issue and different perspectives. I know now that my daughter is doing a high school level, I'm blown away at what I'm learning and seeing all the things that, growing up, it was, this is the answer. This is the right way. There was never question it, think about it. How do you feel about it? It was just, this is what happened here. Learn that. And me being, a good student, I was like, okay, I'll just learn the things and all of that. But if you had asked me at 20 years old how I felt about that, I don't know that I could have given you an answer either. And like you talking about your son's classmates, you know what you know, right? You don't know the other side of it unless you've been taught to form those opinions and think through those things. And I am loving the Sonlight high school levels because almost every question is not just what happened here. It's, okay, well, what do you think about that? How would that have changed if you were this person in this book? Or if you lived at this time, what would you have done? How does that relate to now? Like so much deeper thinking besides just fact regurgitation. And then Anne, you mentioned the student guide, which is another thing that I love for time management. It teaches kids how to manage their own schoolwork. I know I'm very hands-off with my older child because, like I said, I have a 9-year-old son, so I'm really focused on trying to get him to an independent level. But at this point, he still needs a lot of attention from me. And so I tell my daughter, okay, you've got your guide, go do your stuff. We will talk about it later. And she reads her books. She, looks at all the questions. She writes her paper. She does it all on her own. And then we meet later to talk about it. But I tell her, I expect you to be done at this time. This is like a job. If you are told you need to be ready now, you need to be ready now. So don't let me down. And so she's learned, okay, well, I need to make sure that I'm done at this time. And, if that means I'm staying up late to do my work, if that means I'm getting up early, she knows what is expected of her. But again, it's very hands-off for me. So I feel like when she gets to college, it will be a much easier transition than, my high school experience of, here's, what needs to be done here. And there's a reminder, and then there's this reminder, and you're going to take a quiz on that, where I was handheld, I think, a lot by teachers in high school.
I think that really does happen. Another experience, he's had a couple of group projects, and he's had to kind of take the reins and take charge, of the communication between everybody and getting things going with that, because, well, first of all, he would be afraid that it wouldn't happen if he didn't just jump in and do it. And so every single group project he had this entire freshman year, he was the one that reached out to everybody, coordinated and all that stuff. And it's definitely a skill that Sonlight prepares you for as you do those independent things in high school. And Sonny, you were talking about how your role changes, and the term that I kind of apply to that is you become a mentor to your kids, and not really so much a teacher. They're reading their chemistry book and they're learning that, and they're working through reading their books on their own. There's not any more read alouds. If you don't, well, there could be in high school if you want to, but it's designed where, there's no more read alouds. And so you do turn into more of a mentor, and it's just a really, really neat relationship to have as they get older.
I think too, this semester, my son has seen that his something that we model, I think, is if you don't know the answer, you find a source. In the group, there's a couple of ladies that have shared that, oh, I'm not the math person, so the math person does the math. I'm not the English person, so the English person does the English. They kind of have that agreement. And my son has figured out that there were Sonlighters, these twins from Missouri, I think. And I'm so thankful for them. I met their mom at a banquet at the university where my sons are going, and she's a Sonlight mom. It was so great to meet a Sonlight mom in a place where I didn't expect to. And we had the best time talking. And her sons are phenomenal with biology. And my son was able to go to study groups that they held and in the library and to make great gains from that. And then he's helping, his strong suit is math. And so the chemistry, he explaining to his study group, he's been helping. They're almost there. There's just this little part they don't understand. So he's helping. And so it's really neat to see them doing what has been modeled. When you have a subject that you need help on, sometimes you need a neighbor homeschooler or someone to reach out to in your community group. And that's fine. That's fine to do. We need each other. We're independent, but we sometimes need others too.
Absolutely. Because think about in adulthood, if you're at work or you're with friends or whatever, you don't just say, oh, I've got all the answers, I can figure it all out, right? You rely on other people for the things that they can bring to the table. I also love that Sonlighters have that instant connection because they've read a lot of the same books. I think, I was talking with my daughter about it the other day, and she's like, no one my age reads, it's horrible. But when you have Sonlight kids who have all read the same books, they can share those conversations. And I know I get really excited to talk with other Sonlight parents because we all have our favorite books. And so it's an instant, friendship right there based on that common knowledge that you share. So yeah, I think what we're telling you, if you have littles and you're struggling because you feel like you're doing it all, as your kids get older, that relationship is so fun. And with Sonlight, it makes it very easy to gradually move into that role of counselor and not, having to teach everything. Let's talk a little bit about the life skills necessary for launching teens. I think about when I was in high school, we didn't do a lot of life skills classes. It was the math and science and history and things like that. But is there anything else that, because you have the time or you're with your kids more, that you should encourage your kids to learn while they're still at home, or maybe some opportunities that they can have that they wouldn't have if they were in school?
You might know what it is. Laundry. That's my thing. They will know how to do all of their laundry at a much younger age in high school. They started that way early. But it's kind of funny because the college thing is, oh, well, you're going home for the weekend, right? So you're gonna bring your laundry. No. William would do his laundry before he came home, because why would he want to spend time doing that at home? But that's a key thing. I think some of the chores, honestly, if they did go to public school, had school all day, and then they had ball games or whatever in the evening, I don't think I could ask them, to necessarily do all these things. But when we're here during the day, it's just part of our life. And every person in my household is responsible for their own laundry. And if they need a certain thing a certain day, that's on them. And that's just a lifestyle that we've had for years and years and years. And I love that. And I know, and just other things too. I know they get just by being around, daily life budgeting and things like that. They might not see when they're in school, because they see you, they're there, you're paying your bills, or you're on the computer balancing your checkbook thing on your computer program, and they see all of these everyday things. And so it's just kind of a natural way to help them get ready. Is just by seeing all the things, and we can let them know what we're doing. That you kind of have to have a part in it too. They can't just see you on the computer. You got to tell them what you're doing.
I think making goals each year as you go along, seeing what are some big skills I want to cover this year. That's a good thing to kind of think ahead about, and maybe jot in your planner or, jot down in your calendar. And then just to kind of think ahead, what are some things we need to work on? What are some things that would be helpful to them if they start to grow in independence on this? And then, like Anne said, if whenever I made a big deal, because I've realized at some point my boys see me on the computer or on my phone, and I'm sometimes taking care of business. I don't want them to think that I'm just like over here on my phone. There's life that has moved to the phone, which I think kind of looks like we're not doing work when we're doing, and we could be doing work when we're looking at our phone or our screen, So I think it was important for me to make sure they understood that. And so I would include them. I would say, oh, you know what? So look at all the cars they have, we have to renew the license plate. And this is something that we have to do regularly. Ours needs to be done right now. We just did it last night at about really too late. I won't tell you how late it was when we did that. But basically, those are the kind of things that you have to, that's part of life, getting those things done. And I think including them, telling them about it just so they know it exists. I think when I was at school while my parents were doing those things. So when I was, newly a young adult, I felt like it was, wow, there are so many little things. Like there's a water bill and a utility bill and like there's gas, there's, like how many things are we paying here? 18 bazillion, so I think it's good to talk to your kids about those kind of things so that they just know, at least one example of how this is how we do it. You can do it differently, but this is the way that this is how I remember to do this. This is the way that I, take care of this each quarter or each, I do this about twice a year or however long, when do you need to check your tires to be sure they're, how often? Communicate, take them with you. Let them see how some of those things are going on. Make it a field trip.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can learn those things. And that's what we do if we're doing something. So whether that's renewing the license plate on the car or, if we're needing to change the oil on the car, or something, the kids at least watch and they're, and my daughter now has helped my husband change the oil. That was not her favorite thing, but he's like, if you're ever at a point where you need to do this and you don't want to hire someone to do it, here's how you do it, or this is why this is important. And so she helped him with that. But yeah, anytime something comes up. So if it's, we're changing the filters on this or whatever, come on, just do that, just so that the kids know those are things that happen. I also love what you pointed out about if you are working at home, make sure your kids are aware, like when you're working versus playing or ignoring them. My son will be like, oh, you're on Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, talking to Sonlight moms. Like, it's not the same as, oh, I'm on Facebook ignoring you or whatever. Like, this is part of my job right now, but I will be with you in a minute, so things like that so that they're aware. But I love when my husband and I are on conference calls for my kids to just kind of be in the background where they can hear that, because they get to hear a different side of us. And then also, like, how do you have conversations with other adults? How do you behave professionally? Those little things that are kind of caught more than they can be taught. And especially, if your kids are at school all day, they're not seeing those things. Like what you said, Christy, I don't think I ever saw my dad work until I was an adult and we both were working remotely one time together. And then I was like, oh, is that what you do? And he was all excited because we got to work together, but I was probably 30 years old before that happened. And so it's nice to be able to show your kids those things and give them the chance to try things at home. Before we go, is there anything else that you guys want to say or any additional advice or things that you would share with people who are looking at raising independent kids?
About your daughter not liking changing the oil. My dad also showed me how to change the oil, and he also one of the things I hated was taxes, like sitting down. He made me sit my taxes, and he wouldn't do them for me. He had it was in my hand, and he walked me through it, but he didn't do it for me, and I hated that. And now I am the biggest budget nerd in the world. My husband does taxes. I still don't do the taxes, but I could if I had to, because my dad walked me through it. And that memory I love the memory of sitting down with my dad and doing that. So one day she'll be very grateful for that memory with her dad. Doesn't love it now.
Yeah, yeah. I would say to close, just trust the process. I know that every single year something's different about your homeschool, because your kids are growing, you're in different situations, and something's different just all the time. So no matter what it looks like, that end goal is there. And even if you're in the thick of a whole bunch of young ones that can't do anything by themselves, and you feel like you're being pulled in 10 bazillion different directions, it's only for a time. It really is. And I know it just sounds so cliche that it just goes by so fast, but it does. It really goes by fast. I've got all these people asking me, now that I have a junior, we've been going to all these college visits and everything. All she has is her senior year at home, and everybody's asking me, man, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So it comes fast, but it's such a, we all have our good days and our bad days, but when you get the overall picture as you come close to the end, like I am, and Christy has got you're gonna have two high schoolers next year, right? Or you still have two now?
2 high schoolers, 2 college next year.
Yeah, right. So close to the end. And so it's an amazing place to be able to look back and just see how all the struggles and all the tears and smiles and laughs, just all come together to make this amazing journey. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And like you said, it's hard when they're little and you've got a lot of littles running around. My biggest tip for that, if you have not discovered baby wearing, find a comfortable baby carrier and carry the baby around until they can walk and, do those things. That's what I used to do with my younger child, so that I could still be working with my daughter and he'd be riding either on my front or my back around everywhere I went. But then he was close to me, and so I could still give him what he needed, but could also teach at the same time. Fortunately, because of my age gap, by the time he needed a lot of help, my daughter was a little more independent. But yeah, just take it day by day. And I agree with these ladies, even though mine have not graduated yet, it feels like I just started homeschooling not that long ago. And now here we are 12 years later, or whatever it is. So yeah, so just enjoy those moments. Start small, when your kids start asking to do things, or, even little tiny kids, you can teach to carry their toys to a box or things like that, to get them involved in, part of the family. But you have such a unique opportunity because your kids are with you to show them things that they would not get otherwise. So I absolutely agree with you guys. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all these ideas. As always, if you're watching and you really are struggling with whatever situation you have going on, you can reach out to all 3 of us in the Sonlight Connections app, or you can join us in the Sonlight Connections group on Facebook. You can always contact us anytime, and we will tell you what we've done or share some ideas maybe that have worked for other people. I know I still get ideas all the time from other Sonlighters in the community as well. So make sure you join us there. We would love to help you out. And Ann and Christy, thank you so much.
Thank you.